If you are a woman over 40, today I am sharing with you one of the functional movements that I think is imperative that you are doing. And I give you a very simple way of doing this at your desk, seated. I'm telling you, I try and make it really simple. Just a forewarning, I get a little bossy today. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry because I care so deeply about you and about you feeling and functioning well as you age that I'm willing to be a little bossy today. Hey there, I'm Amy Connell. Welcome to Graced Health, the podcast for women who want simple and grace-filled ways to take care of themselves. And I'm really going to hone in on simple and grace-filled today. I am a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach who wants you to know your eating, movement, and body don't have to be perfect. You just need to be able to do what you're called to do. Okay, so the title of today's episode is, Are you integrating enough of this one fitness movement? I want to start out by saying I am here to meet you where you are. Some of us are let's just say like fascinated or interested. Like some of us have been exercising our bodies for a long time and strength training is part of it. For some of us, that might have been part of our story in the past, and we are recalibrating our mind and our body. I know a lot of my community is interested and really trying to apply the principles of intuitive eating, which also includes joyful movement. So for some of you, your story may be, I used to go to the gym all the time and I used to slam my face against the wall and I did all these high intensity workouts, and now I just like to walk, or now I just like to practice yoga, and that's all I want to do. And if that is you, or if it's that you are a gym rat and you are working out every day, like I want to meet you where you are today. However, I might take you just slightly out of your comfort zone. And if you've been with me a while, I hope that I have earned your trust to do this, because I want to, number one, encourage you with whatever you are doing. At the same time, because I am a 48-year-old woman, and because I work with clients who are primarily close to 10 years older than I am, and because I do a lot of continuing education, there's some things out there that I just want you to know. And you have the power to do with it what you want to do. However, I would love to challenge you to be just a little bit uncomfortable with what I might be asking you to do, or what I am asking you to do if this is new. And I'm only bringing this up and I'm putting this out there because I believe so strongly in the benefits of this one exercise movement, which is the pull. Now, if you have read my book, Your Worthy Body, you know that there was a chapter in there that talked about the 6 basic types of functional movements. Functional movements are those that simulate the real things that we do in a day. If you are sitting on the toilet and you stand back up, that's a squatting motion. If you reach down and you pick up your toddler or your grandchild, or maybe your dog, if you have a pick-upable dog, which is not a real word, that's a pulling motion. There are things that we do in our day-to-day lives that are functional movements. Bicep curls, I like to make fun of them because they're easy to make fun of. I like to call those a vanity movement. There's nothing wrong with doing them. However, just doing a whole bunch of isolated bicep curls don't do a whole lot for our functional movement unless you are the kind of person who has to bring in all of the groceries in one load and you are holding them all in your hand. And then you are training yourself for real life. But our 6 functional movements, very, very quickly, is push, pull, squat, hinge, single leg, and rotational. Sometimes I hear a carry instead of rotational. I'll hear different things maybe in place of those, but those are the ones that I learned per Pete McCall, who I actually just talked about on the episode last week with the smarter workouts and the books that I recommend. But that is how I learned it from Pete. So that's how I'm saying. So push, pull, squat, hinge, single leg, and rotational. I'm zeroing in on the pull today because I think as women over 40, this is essential that you do some sort of pulling motion. And I know I'm sounding a little bit more strongly than I will say oftentimes, but this is something that if you are, again, a woman over 40, I really would like to challenge you to incorporate some sort of pulls in your daily rhythms. And I am going to tell you at the end of this episode how to do that sitting at your desk, at your office desk. So you do not need to join a gym for this. These are simple. So stick with me, and I'm going to share with you 3 pulls that you can do at your desk. Let's really quickly define what a pull is. So that is basically taking anything and pulling it toward your body. I think the quintessential example of that is a pull-up. So you can take a bar and pull it toward your body, thereby elevating you up. Now, if you can do these, I'm super impressed. I think this is great. I can't. I have never really spent that much time training to do it. It is something that takes some very intentional training, and I guess it's just not that important to me because I can't do a pull-up and I'm fine with that. I can do other things. Other examples are just standing upright rows. So if we'll do this in group fitness a lot. So if you're just standing nice and tall, good posture, and you take dumbbells or maybe even a row bar and you're pulling that from an extended position, so maybe down in the middle of your thighs, up toward your shoulders, that is pulling it toward the center of your body. You can also pull with bands. You can do a bent over row. So anytime you hear these rows, pulls, something like that, that is a pulling motion. Now, what that primarily does is get your back and your core. So I'm jumping ahead just a little bit, but that is the purpose of a pull motion. It complements the push. So if you do a lot of push-ups, if you do a lot of chest presses, if you do a lot of things where you're pushing things away from your body, then it is imperative that you counteract that with a pull. Okay, so let's talk about 3 areas of our body that benefit from pulls. And the first one, in my opinion, might be the most important one. It's really hard to say what's the most important, but I will tell you that this is what I have been studying a lot and have had a lot of focus on. And therefore, that's what I get a little fixated on. My husband, every now and then, he's like, do you realize that you get like one movement and you get really fixated on it and you do it over and over and you tell people about it over and over? And I said, I do know that. And then I'll go to something else. I think my clients know that as well. So pulling is definitely front and center for me right now. But the most, and like I said, so I don't know if I can say the most important, but a huge, huge element of the importance of a pulling motion is for your spinal health. If you are in perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, I want you to hear this, that doing pulling motions will help your spine. It can help prevent osteopenia, which is when your bones start weakening. It can help prevent osteoporosis, which is even more degradation of your spine, where basically the kind of the inner part of your bones starts to degrade. It starts to kind of waste away. Did you know that in the first 5 to 7 years post-menopause, you can lose 20% of your bone density? That is a lot. 5 to 7 years, 20%. That is huge. Now, I'm going to get into the science of this just really quickly. There are 2 elements that impact our bone health. One of these is called osteoblasts with a B. Another is osteoclasts with a C. Osteoblasts build bone and improve bone density. So when we are young, and especially when we are still building our bones, which is up to if I remember correctly, I think it's about age 25, we have a lot of osteoblasts. This is why every time I took my boys to the pediatrician, she would always make sure that they were drinking their milk. She wanted to make sure that they were having enough calcium so their bones were building properly. So if you have adolescent women in your house and you are trying to get them to either ensure that they have enough calcium, which yes, you can get from dairy, but also from other foods. You can Google it. I don't want to get on a rabbit trail here. And if they are not active, you can let them listen to this. It is so important to try and build our bone health before the age of 25, because after that, our bones don't really build anymore. Now, we have a lot of osteoblasts when we are younger. The osteoclasts will break down the bone, and those decrease the bone density. So typically, let's say from 25 to, let's say you have menopause, you hit menopause at 51, which is the average age. So for those 26 years, you kind of have a balance of osteoblasts, osteoclasts. Your bones aren't building more, but they're not breaking down more. Everything's just kind of nice. And then with menopause, everything gets whacked out, just like we know. And what happens is your osteoblasts decrease and your osteoclasts increases. So then you are having a loss of your bones, of your mineral density, and this can start to degrade our bones. We see this a lot in our spine, but particularly for osteoporosis, and when you really start to see this bone degradation, you can also see it in your wrists, and then also what's called your lumbopelvic hip complex, which is basically like your pelvis, your hip bones, like that whole thing where your femur comes in, like that entire, hip area. Now, that's not meant to be or sound depressing. It is the science and the facts as we understand it right now. The good news is research has showed that exercise will stimulate the activity of osteoblasts, which are the ones that build up, and that it can help suppress the osteoclasts, which break that down. The exercise, however, does need to be somewhat specific. So you can exercise, just say you walk a lot, okay? Or if you are on the Peloton a lot, that is wonderful exercise. I applaud that. I want you to do it. However, that is not going to help your spine because you need to have that exercise in a localized area, in the area you want to prevent that bone breakdown. When you do pulls, the stress of the resistance, whether it's from your own body or a loop or a band or a dumbbell or anything else, provides that localized area, the resistance and the stress to activate the osteoblasts, the buildup, and suppress the osteoclasts. Now, what does this mean in real life? Well, what this means is doing pulls will help your spine. That actually leads into the second benefit of doing these pulling motions, which is your posture. Okay, you don't have to do this, but raise your hand if your mother used to tell you to stand up straight. I'm raising my hand. I have clients, again, who are older than I am. They're like, yeah, my mom used to tell me to stand up straight all the time. Like, we just did this. I don't know why. I don't know if it was a confidence thing. I don't know why, but our posture will breed to more poor posture because the muscles in our back just get looser and looser and weaker and weaker. And then all of a sudden we can't support ourselves to sit upright. If you are noticing the beginning of what's called kyphosis or that dowager's hump or dowager's hump, I can't remember how to pronounce it, but it's basically just kind of a little bump on the back of your neck. That is your spine starting to lean forward. That may or may not be due to osteoporosis. This is something I have learned recently. So if you have that does not mean you have osteoporosis, but that does mean that your spine and your back needs attention through pulling. So if you want, like, stand up straight and do a selfie from the side and then see if you've got that little bump. If you want to look it up, just go Google Dowagers. It's Dowagers hump, and you can see the progression of it. Again, that may mean you need to talk with your doctor about, like, are you afraid that you're getting osteoporosis? If you have typically had very not dense bones, but very light bones, non-dense bones, whatever. Or it may be that your bones are fine in general, but you need to start doing some pulls, which will strengthen the muscles to keep your spine and your head upright. And those pulls will also increase those osteoblasts, the build-up ones, and that will help prevent your bones from becoming weaker. So this will, from a visual thing, it will definitely help your posture. It will also help that internal mechanism of your spine. And then this will lead to number 3, but a secondary benefit and a secondary muscle that is strengthened when you do pulls is your core stabilizers. Now, your core stabilizers are kind of 4, I don't want to get too specific here, but there's about 4 that are identified as your stabilizing muscles. So that's your diaphragm. That's the one that you breathe through. Also, diaphragm, really great for pulling yourself into that parasympathetic state, kind of calming yourself down. There's the transverse abdominis, which is more on either side. There's the multifidus, and I think I just mispronounced that, but I'm not going to stop here and go back and look. But those are muscles that go all up and down your spine, but kind of go in the vertebrae. So I've talked about the erector spinae, which are the kind of the outer muscles that go on either side of your spine. And then multifidus kind of go in and out, almost like they fill in the space in between your vertebrae, but it's not connective tissue. It's actually muscles. And then the other core stabilizers is your pelvic floor, which of course is, as we know from Jen Lormond and Christina Walsh in Tighten Your Tinkler, in those 2 episodes, which I will link to those. Our pelvic floor has a lot of different muscles. So when you do those pulls, you are also going to be helping to strengthen those core stabilizers. Does it get that rectus abdominis, the 6-pack? A little bit. I mean, not really. But do we care so much about that at this point? No. What we care about is having overall general health, and having a really strong spine is important to do that. So a really quick recap of the 3 areas and benefits of doing pulls are: number 1, your spinal health, your actual bones. Number 2, your posture, which is somewhat visual, but also kind of that inside the muscles, the stabilizers. And then number 3, your core stabilizers. Now, when do you do these pulls? Okay, you're like, all right, Amy, when do you want me to do these? So I would first recommend that every time you do a pushing motion, that you also need to do a pulling motion, preferably that same day, but at least within a week's period of time. So if you do a bunch of chest on Mondays, then on Wednesdays, I want you doing a lot of backs, a lot of pulls, something like that. Now, the next thing I'm going to say is not scientifically backed. However, I think it is something that can easily be incorporated, and based on our societal habits, I don't think that it's going to be too provocative. And that is this. It is my opinion as a trainer to women over 40 that for every 1 pushing motion you make, so push-ups, chest press, anything at the gym where you're pushing it forward, that you should do 2 pulls. Now, granted, we don't have to be like super scientific about this, but the general intention is that we are doing more pulls than pushes. And that's because if you are sitting at a desk, if you are driving, if you are on your phone, and most of us are, then we are naturally hunched over. It is so important to do these exercises and to do these pulls to help to write us back up rather than turning into a question mark. You know what that looks like, right? Like if you've got a teenager, you probably have a kid who looks like a question mark. So let me tell you how this works into my weekly rhythm. So I will strength train 2 to 3 times a week. And these are generally between 35 and maybe 45 minutes if on the third one, because that's going to be on a Saturday or a Sunday or something like that. On, say, Monday, I will do a push and a pull. So maybe I do upright chest press, or I'll do chest press on the TRX. And then I will also do a pull. So again, I use bands a lot for this. I will use the TRX for this, but on Mondays, I will do a push and a pull. On Wednesdays, I will do a pull. And then because I have a shoulder injury that I just kind of continually have to do some physical therapy for that, I will do a few physical therapy movements for my shoulder. So I'm kind of doing more single muscle, very focused shoulder deltoid type stuff, just because that's what I need to do for my body. So I'm not doing another push on Wednesday. And then Saturday's kind of a crapshoot. It's just all over the place. So I can't even tell you what I do. It just kind of depends on what I feel like doing and how hard I feel like breathing. And if I feel like slamming anything down. And if I do, I get the sand bells and all of that kind of stuff. But in general, again, rabbit hole, let's pull it back in, Amy, pull it back in. Again, this is not scientifically backed, but if we were sitting down for coffee, or if you did some sort of a training consult with me, that's what I would recommend that you do. 2 pulling motions to 1 pushing motion. Now, what I want to do is share with you some pulls that you can do at your desk. That's right, at your desk. Obviously, if you have a trainer, if you are in a group fitness setting where they are scheduling everything out for you, then hopefully you are getting some pulls, and hopefully that is part of a regular weekly workout. I'm not saying you need to do pulls every day, but I'm hoping that you do that. However, you can do just these little simple things. So remember at the very beginning, I said I want to hone in on that simple and grace-filled. Here's the simple part. You can get what I call resistance loops. And they look like really big rubber bands. They're anywhere between 12 to 16 inches in circumference. And you can get 5 of them for a pack of like $12. I mean, there's some that are more, there's some that are less, but let's just say $12. So relatively inexpensive. You just need to take one of those to work with you, or put one of them by your desk. I actually keep one in my desk. And here are 3 movements. One is, and by the way, if you are on my mailing list, you have this in your inbox today. If you are not on my mailing list, I want you to get on my mailing list, and there's a sign up for that. And this is for the ones where you get notifications of the podcast. And if you're like, but Amy, I'm not part of the mailing list and I want to know what you're talking about, then I will put the link to the YouTube video I have put together in a very quick way, so you can see what I'm talking about. But the first one is, I want you to get your hands, put them through the loop, take your arms out at shoulder height, and grasp onto that loop. I am doing this with you. So if you hear background noise, that's me messing with these loops. Anyway, so take that out. Then take your elbows at shoulder height and pull them back as much as you can, squeezing your shoulder blades against your spine. So you don't want to have them too far down. You don't want to have them too far up. I want those elbows right at shoulder height, and I want you to visualize the muscles around your spine contracting and squeezing your spine. Visualization, let's say that fast 3 times, is really, really helpful when we're doing this. The second one is, you're going to start with your hands out just like you did. So palms are through it, kind of gently grasping. And instead of doing both arms, I want you to do one arm. So I like to call this a bow and arrow. And I say this joke too much. It's probably very tired, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm like, get your inner Katniss on, your Katniss Evergreen. If you were a Hunger Games fan, it's that bow and arrow. When you do this, another thing to watch is your wrist. I don't want you breaking your wrist up or taking it down. Keep that wrist in a nice and neutral position. As a bonus, what you will be doing is working on the osteoblasts in your wrist. Because again, like I said, if you are starting to have some bone degradation from any kind of osteopenia or anything like that, then that will hit often your wrists, your spine, and that lumbo-hip pelvic complex. So you're getting a little bit of 2-for-1 when you do that. So I would say do 15 on one side and then 15 on the other. Then for the third one, this is going to look a little different, but hopefully you can find to do it. Come to the edge of your seat and put the loop underneath one foot, so around the arch of your foot. Now, if you've got like heels on or something, then this is just going to feel weird. So maybe don't do it with heels. But if you're lucky enough to get to wear sneakers to work or something else, then hopefully this will work for you. So take the loop, put it around the arch of your foot, and grab the loop with your opposite hand. So if the loop is in your your right foot, then grab it with your left hand. You are seated at the very edge of your chair, and then I want you to hinge forward from your hips. Don't bend over, no rounding of the back. Hinge forward. You can take your right elbow on that right knee to kind of stabilize yourself and pull back. Now, where's your elbow with this? I say, and there's a lot of different ways of doing it, but just for the sake of demonstration or for verbal demonstration, keep your elbow in on this one. So have it go by your rib cage, kind of brush by your rib cage every time. Do that 15 times on one side, 15 on the other. Now, if you have one of these bags of loops, you'll have 5 different resistances. Is that the right word? You'll have 5 different levels of resistance. There we go. Choose the one that works for you. Probably you're going to need a couple different ones of them. If you only have one, just grab the middle one, just grab medium and see how it works. And then you can go up or you can go down. Again, we don't have to have a perfect science this whole time, the first time or the first couple times. The important thing is that we are moving that. I will also be including that video in my monthly First Friday journal, which is coming out on the first Friday of every month. And hopefully you are listening to this in real time. So the next one that's coming out is Friday, February 3rd, and I will have the YouTube on that as well. So if you are not part of my First Friday journals, please go grab them. We have so much fun with that. I always get a lot of fun compliments back because I give you lots of goodie stuff. So things on fitness like this, food, I'll give recipes, fun, friends, sometimes families, like things that may or may not start with F. So make sure that you are part of that community. It's a free thing to get. I'm not pushing any agenda. I just like to connect with you that way. And it's always fun when you respond back. I really value anytime anyone responds back for a lot of different reasons, but also just to know that, hey, it reached a real person. And then there's a real person on the other end who's going to respond back to you. And that real person is me. So if you are not yet part of that First Friday journal, go grab it. You can get that at gracedhealth.com/monthly-updates. Okay, so the takeaway of this, I'm just going to do a super quick recap. Why do we want to do pulls? It's good for our spinal health, it's good for our posture, and it's good for our core. When do we do them? We balance that with a push. So every time you do a push, you need to be doing a pull within a week's rhythm. That doesn't mean you have to do a push and a pull on the very same day, but if you're doing a push on one day, make sure you're doing a pull on the other day. Amy's non-scientific recommendation that I do believe in is 2 pulls for every 1 push, because we are leaning forward so much in everything we do. 3 pulls you can do at your desk. You can do a pull back with both elbows at your shoulder height. You can do a bow and arrow, which is one arm going back. And then you can do that seated single arm pull with your loop underneath your foot, underneath the arch of your foot. So that is I'm not normally this bossy, by the way. If this is your first time listening, I'm not typically this bossy. However, I believe in it. And if you've been with me, you know that if I'm coming in here being all firm, then you know that I really believe in this. So that is all I have for you today. Don't forget to sign up for the monthly updates. I hope that you can grab this and incorporate it in a simple way. And if you don't get it all the time, then that's where the grace comes in. That's okay. I'm not here to complicate matters, but I am here to help you feel and function well as we age. Okay, that is all for today. Go out there and have a great day.